Now you see, this letting me abide in you is referred to in all mystical literature as practicing the presence of God. It means acknowledging him in all thy ways so that he may give thee rest. It means keeping the mind stayed on God so that we may find his rest. It means abiding in the assurance of his presence and of his power. And it means accepting one of the great principles revealed by the Master, that there is but one power. In other words, here there needs to be a very definite practice, because all of us were born and brought up in the belief of two powers, a good power and an evil power. And just as the world today is asking itself, is there a God power going to come along and destroy these evil powers? Is there a God power going to save us from bombs or communism? So it is that we too have been hypnotized into believing that there are two powers, so that I'm sure that many of us often also wonder, is God going to come along and destroy the evil powers that threaten us in our generation? And the answer is no. God isn't any more than God ever has before. And that doesn't mean that the world can't be saved any more than it means that we individually can't be saved just because someone has said that there is no medicine with which to cure us. It means, however, that to be saved is going to depend on our ability to mold our consciousness in order that we may be a fertile consciousness, receptive and responsive to the grace of God which is already functioning within us. Now, we bar this power of grace every time we expect a good power to destroy an evil power. Every time we expect God to remove some form of evil, sin, disease, death, lack, or limitation, every time we look to the one good God power to do something to an evil power, we bar its operation. Only in the degree that we can transform our consciousness to where we can accept that thou, God, art the only power, and beside thee there are no other powers. I shall not fear what man can do to me. I shall not fear what conditions can do to me. I shall not fear the armies of the aliens. For all of these have but temporal power, which in the realization of God is no power. Every time that you can bring to conscious remembrance sin, disease, infection, contagion, accident, alcohol, wars, communism, bombs, all of these are temporal powers beyond the flesh, which in the realization of God's allness makes them impotent. Every time you can bring your consciousness to that point, you are not only bringing greater freedom into your experience, you're bringing it into the experience of the entire world. It takes only one with truth to save multitudes. Don't ever forget, just one practitioner has healed tens of thousands of patients. One. Think what 1,000 practitioners can do. In fact, what they have done. One individual whose consciousness is imbued with the realization of God as all power, that one individual is enough to save cities, communities, to stop infections and contagions, to stop storms. One individual quietly, confidently realizing, quietly or confidently looking at Pilate and saying, thou couldst have no power over me except God's power. One individual looking at the crippled and saying, what did hinder you? God is the only power. One individual, 2 or more gathered together, or 10 righteous men in a city. All of these indicate how just a few really could save the world. Not by invoking deity, not by praying to God to do something to our enemies, but by settling back in quietness and in confidence and realizing, is there some power other than God? And whence did it come? Who created a power destructive to God or to God's universe? Who gave power to any power to destroy God or God's kingdom? If God is God, meaning if God is infinite and omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient, whence comes another power? And then, as we individually train ourselves and ultimately bring ourselves to where we can look out at this world and say, just imagine, the only power there is invisible. Therefore, I need not fear anything or anybody in the visible.